Hey everybody, welcome to more week 3 in our series, A Good Start. Really hope you were with us this past week at one of our locations or with us online as we looked at maybe a discipline that you were surprised at when you first heard it, and that was silence or solitude. There's no doubt that it was a fascinating conversation with our locations, thinking about the need to silence the world around us so that we can hear the voice of God. Mark Batterson is a pastor and writer. He wrote a little article that I was reading this past week, and it was called The Sound of Silence. If you were with us Sunday, you may have heard your location pastor talk a little bit about that translation from 1 Kings 19, the still small voice. It really is a whisper, but it really doesn't get to the fact that it is the fact that we could hear the voice of God because it was silent. In the article, Batterson refers to something that I had never heard of before. He said it's something called interruption science. And in the field of study called interruption science, they have concluded that we are interrupted every 3 minutes. That's crazy, isn't it? We are interrupted every 3 minutes. And let's not even take the time to talk about the fact that there's an entire field of study called interruption science. In that field of study, along with acoustic engineers and ecologists and all these other folks, they have been compiling these lists for about 30 years of where can you find uninterrupted places of silence. And they have compiled a list of called the list of the last great quiet places. It consists of places with at least 15 minutes of uninterrupted quiet during daytime hours. At last count, listen to this, at last count, there were only 12 quiet places in the entire United States. I don't think it's a mystery. We talked about it Sunday for sure, that we are bombarded with noise. And it's no wonder that at times we feel so disconnected from God Himself. It's hard to tune out all the other voices. It's hard to let go of the call from social media to look in. It's hard to ignore the constant demands of more and more and more of our attention and our time. But the truth of the matter is, and we saw this Sunday, that silence helps us hear God's voice and know His heart. I love this idea. Batterson wrote these 3 things down. He says, silence is the difference between sight and insight. Silence is the difference between happiness and joy. Silence is the difference between fear and faith. We've all been bombarded with noise. We all know what that noise is. The psalmist, though, and maybe you heard this at your location on Sunday, I want to read a verse again that is so powerful. And it's Psalm 46, verse 10, the first part, 10a. And the psalmist says this, "Be still and know that I am God." If you're trying to silence the noise, if you're trying to get past the noise, you've got to separate yourself from it, the distractions of it all, and listen for that quiet whisper that can calm us and slow us down and help us to hear His voice. When our lives get loud, and they do, our lives get loud with noise filling up all the space in our mind and our ears and our eyes, we can lose our sense of being. We can kind of be out of touch. Our schedules get busy. Things get out of balance. The demands just increase, as I said earlier. And what do? Here's 2 conclusions that I would make for you today. And whether you're doing this alone or in a group, I think these are 2 things that I think we all have to give some thought to and some life adjustment to. Number 1, our lives are simply too loud. Our lives are simply too loud. And number 2, our schedules are too busy. Let those kind of sink in. Our lives are too loud and our schedules are too busy. That's how we get to the place where we forget that God is God. It takes very little to distract us now. We're so compressed with all the things coming around us. We feel the tightening of that every single day. John Donne was an English poet, most famous for "No man is an island unto himself." I'm sure you've probably heard that before. That's probably his most famous quote. John Donne said this as well. He said, "I neglect God and his angels for the noise of a fly." I neglect God and his angels for the noise of a fly. So little takes our heart, our attention, our thinking, our focus on God. Well, as you spend some time this week, I hope that you took to heart the message, and maybe you found some time to start trying to build in some silence and some solitude in your life. It doesn't mean that there won't be a bird chirping or a cricket humming or the sound of a refrigerator in the background. What it does mean is that all the things that are so noisy in our life, all the other voices, all the other sounds, we're closing those off. It does mean that nothing is going to take that part of our schedule and replace it with something else. We're going to make that a priority of being silent and being alone with God. If you want to hear the voice of God, if you want to hear the heart of God, silence is the key. If we take to heart what he says, be still and know that I'm God. We have to shut the noise off if we're going to hear. Silence is the key. And if we want God's Spirit to fill us up and begin to direct us, we have to slow down. We have to be still. In another Psalm, Psalm 32, verse 7, you may have read this: "You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance." I don't know if you've ever heard that verse before, but it's such a powerful psalm to me. Psalm 32, verse 7. He refers to God as his refuge, his fortress, a help, an ever-present help in time of need. And then that beautiful picture, "You are my hiding place," a place where I can go and be surrounded by you and hidden away from the world. What does that mean? The noise of the world, the distractions of the world, the busyness of the world. The voice that we need to hear, louder than any other voice, cannot be crowded out. It must be us yielding ourselves, our time, to being silent with the Lord. When you do, he delivers, he speaks, and we can hear. God often speaks loudest when we decide we're going to be quietest. I believe silence is so critical to our spiritual vitality, to us growing and being strong. Listen to that verse one more time. You may have heard Sunday the idea of one word at a time from Louis Giglio. Take one word at a time. Be. Be still. Be still and know. Be still and know that I am God. My prayer for each of you is that you hear his whisper, the sound of silence, louder than any other noise in the world surrounding you. And that you'll lean into that and let him lead you in a new way. Hey, God bless you for being with us. We got one more week in the series. Can't wait to see you next week for that time together as we complete our series, A Good Start. I hope you have a great week. We're praying for you, and we're here if you ever need us. God bless.